So what is content? I think there is a lot of discussion about the game that we need more content, that we need new content. And a few of the suggestions in the suggestions chat are always asking for a new level expansion. Now, I don't think a level expansion is content. The actual content is something that can be categorized into two things. We have horizontal content and we have vertical content. Vertical content would, for example, be leveling. So you just go from level 1 to 100, and once you've reached level 100, you cannot do anything that you could have done from level 1 to 99. But everything else that remains horizontal content would be all this stuff that is just tied to level 100. So you have character progression that is stage by stage. This would be the vertical part, and each of these vertical parts is divided into several horizontal paths. But if you want to go and increase the amount of content in the game, a level expansion wouldn't really fix any of that, because you just go from level 100 to level 200 and then you do the exact same stuff, the same horizontal content that you've always done in DSO, because it scales with level, so the horizontal content doesn't really change ever. This means level is entirely irrelevant to the game. Now, there's also another thing that is something I think wouldn't really work out, because if you were to create, for example, a new class like everyone's asking for, you would have one new class. This means a new character. This means everything starts from scratch, and the current state of the game really isn't designed to make several characters. It is awful, to be fair with the game. But what could we actually do to fix the content issue? We need stuff that is introduced in content expansions, for example, but isn't tied to the level. So we're talking about new areas, we're talking about bosses, we're talking about maybe reworks of older bosses to have more precise mechanics and better loot, new items, new sets, things like that. Maybe a change of an ability that a character has, but it's not really been used much, so that it is more of a viable option. You could tie this in with a set, you could tie this in with a unique item effect. Things like that would be actual content. Just increasing levels wouldn't be. There are always these situations in games where you kind of lose progress just because the game gets updated. You get new stuff, the old stuff kind of gets invalidated. But if you were to actually start doing something like increasing the levels or releasing new content that is so much stronger than the old content, then all of the old content is just thrown aside and you would just do the new stuff. That is kind of the vertical progression part, where you throw away the old stuff and progress to the next stage, leaving everything you've done before behind and never really having a use for that stuff. So in this case, DSO actually has pretty good horizontal content, because horizontal content is what keeps you there. It is what you can do at the same stage that you're at. We're level 100, we can do pretty much everything. And all the horizontal content in DSO is tied to events. Now, events are also kind of problematic in my opinion, because we have quite a lot of them. I think most of them are decent. They're all right. I really do like the recurring ones like Sargon. I don't really mind Desert of Ascensus. It's great for some quick dragon. I really do enjoy the full moon and new moon events. They're great for upgrading runes, are great for upgrading stones. It's just a very nice to have recurring event. I also think it's great that we have events like Dragon, that we have events like BGH. Events that are a little bit more complex, last a little bit longer, and that we have seasonal events like the winter event, Halloween, the summer solstice, the anniversary event, New Year's event. Things that just keep reoccurring at a set point in time. But if you continue adding content to the game just based on events, then you're going to have a different issue with content. And that is you're lacking evergreen content. Now, what do I mean by that? Evergreen content is pretty much content that is there year round. You don't have downtime on it. It's never really gone and needs to come back before you can farm it. You can always do this. Events aren't like that. Events are seasonal. They're timed. They're temporary. If an event is gone, you will have to wait. Maybe in some cases, a year. Worst case we had was BGH with 1.5 or 2 years, which is crazy. Because some of these events have really, really good items. Best example, BGH. It wasn't there for almost 2 years. It is the best set in the game for almost every class except Dragon Knight. It was just necessary to have on some classes, especially the mage. Ranger could get away without BGH, but it's still like a big thing to have and very, very important if you want to hit that endgame and that really, really strong point for your character. But overall, it was just never available. So if you are in a situation where you're just missing this one part, you're not going to play until this event hits, which might be in some cases half a year. So why drop players for half a year until that content comes? You need to give them something in the meantime. Everything we have right now would be farming Q5. We can just run Q5, right? We can just run Q1, whatever it is. We can farm multi-tools and stuff, but it gets stale very, very fast. There isn't really anything happening during those farming sessions. One thing that I would propose is to have certain events, for example, have a map be corrupted or have a random boss invade your map. Have something like loot goblins spawn for different resources, maybe including Anaman, maybe including clovers, maybe including whatever it is, bone coins. Give us something to do with currencies that aren't used, for example, clovers, bone coins, whatever it is, right? A random rift open when you kill the boss of a dungeon in, for example, Q1, Q5, whatever it is, or if you kill like a loot goblin and then you can get a free entrance to the realm cavern, maybe to something else like a gold cave. Just look at Diablo 3, they did a really, really good job with that back in the day. It was always great to find these loot goblins, and I'm pretty sure that this is not something that they couldn't implement. Nothing would really prevent you from adding maybe merchants that sometimes appear in certain maps and sell items that you can gain for currency you get by defeating these invading bosses or something. There's really a lot of stuff you can do to change up the stale farming that you do day by day by day and giving something to look forward to during these farming sessions. Breaking up the monotony of it and kind of resetting the farm to where you're just farming for the next special event again instead of just farming for 70 hours just to get enough multi-tools to enter into whatever crystal cave gets scammed, right? You now have these different points during farming where it just changes, where new stuff happens. Things like this would also encourage high-level players to maybe make a group and take lower-level players through these maps just so that certain events can be triggered at all, because maybe you need a 5-man group for this. Maybe you need at least 3 people for this. Something else that I think is really, really annoying in terms of content is they have so much opportunity to change mechanics of bosses, to change one of the, in my opinion, best bosses in the game is also the most annoying one, which would be Destructor, because it's the only boss that actually has a mechanic. Every other boss is just a damage sponge, just a stat check, and that is something that I think isn't really explored enough. Recently, Throne and Liberty had insane dungeons with great mechanics. Just take some inspiration from there. It's probably not even that difficult. At least I hope so. It would be pretty cool. In general, I think the entire idea of adding content to the game, for example, the stream just announced something called Bounty Hunter, adding it to the game and just having it as a new event. I don't know. We'll have to see what it actually is, but if it's another event, it's going to be there for 3 weeks at most, and then it's going to disappear. You just spent 2, 3, 4 months developing something that's in the game for 3 weeks, and then it's going to disappear for half a year, worst case scenario 2 years, because you have to rework it again. I just don't think that's something really great. We don't even need much new stuff, in my opinion. We just have so much old stuff that is unused. For example, all the old sets that are just stats. Take them, rework them, give them some special effect, get creative. You will definitely find enough inspiration just asking through the suggestion channels, but that is something that needs to be explored. Having this evergreen horizontal content that you can play with, playing different sets, playing bosses that are actually interesting, farming, getting taken from your current farming session into some unique event right now that happens randomly during farming and being thrown back into your farming session, so that you have this stop and go for your farming, that you're not always just running, loading screen, and just doing the same thing over and over and over until it gets stale, until you're done, and then you quit